Picture this. You spend £300,000 rebuilding a Ferrari from a burned-out shell. You've documented the whole thing on YouTube. Millions of people watched you do it. And then Ferrari sends a letter saying they won't sell you a single replacement part, ever. Not a gasket, not a sensor, not a trim clip. That actually happened to Matt Armstrong. Now, here's where it gets bigger than one guy and one car brand. The European Union just passed legislation that could make that kind of manufacturer lockout illegal. And depending on how it plays out, it could also shine an uncomfortable light on situations like Mark McCann's, where the entire question of what's in a car, who repaired it, and what was disclosed about it sits right at the center of a very public legal dispute. We're talking about the EU Right to Repair Directive. And if you think this is some dry regulatory story, give me 3 minutes, because it's actually one of the most consequential pieces of legislation to hit the car world in years. And two of the biggest names in UK car YouTube are already caught in its orbit. Before we get into it, if you want to follow this story as it develops, because it is developing, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This is the kind of thing that changes month to month, and I'll be covering every twist. Like the video if you're here for it. Now let's go. In April 2024, the European Parliament voted to adopt the Right to Repair Directive. It came into force in July 2024, and EU member states have until July 2026 to fully integrate it into national law. The core idea sounds simple. Manufacturers must make it possible for products to be repaired. That means making spare parts available, providing access to repair documentation, and not using software or technical measures to artificially block independent repair. Now, the initial version of the directive primarily targets household appliances, washing machines, smartphones, laptops. But the automotive industry has been watching this closely because the EU has parallel legislation covering vehicle repair access, and the right to repair movement is explicitly pushing to bring cars into scope. Under the existing motor vehicle block exemption regulation, which sounds boring but is genuinely important, independent garages in the EU already have a legal right to access technical repair data and parts that are available to franchise dealers. The problem is enforcement. Manufacturers have found creative ways to comply technically while making access slow, expensive, or practically useless. What the new directive does is tighten those obligations, and crucially, it puts the burden of proof on the manufacturer to demonstrate they haven't blocked repair. That's a meaningful shift. So why does this matter to people watching a UK car YouTube channel? Because of what Matt Armstrong experienced, and because of what allegedly happened in the Mark McCann situation. If you've followed Matt Armstrong's channel, you'll know the broad strokes. He buys salvage title or insurance write-off vehicles, cars that have been in accidents, fires, floods, and rebuilds them. He's done Lamborghinis, McLarens, Rolls-Royces, and yes, multiple Ferraris. The Ferrari situation became public knowledge around 2022 and 2023, when Armstrong reportedly revealed that Ferrari had him on what's sometimes called a blacklist. Ferrari, like several other exotic manufacturers, has a policy of refusing to supply parts or technical support to vehicles they consider to have been compromised, which includes insurance write-offs that have been rebuilt outside the official network. Now, Ferrari's position has a logic to it. They argue that an improperly rebuilt car could be dangerous, that it damages brand reputation, and that their vehicles require specialist knowledge to repair safely. There's some legitimacy to that. A 700 horsepower mid-engine sports car with a compromised chassis structure is genuinely dangerous. But here's the counter-argument, and this is where the right to repair legislation directly applies. Ferrari decides unilaterally what counts as compromised. They control the parts supply. They control the diagnostic software. And when they refuse access to all of that, they're not necessarily protecting safety. They're also protecting their ability to control the secondary market for their own vehicles. Under EU right-to-repair principles, that kind of dual-use restriction, where safety language is used to enforce commercial exclusivity, is exactly what regulators are looking at. The legislation specifically addresses software-based lockouts, which Ferrari and others use extensively through their diagnostic systems. Armstrong, to his credit, found ways around some of this, sourcing parts through dealer networks in different markets using third-party diagnostic tools, and being extremely transparent about what he was doing and why. But the fact that he had to work around manufacturer restrictions at all is a perfect illustration of what the legislation is trying to fix. It's worth pausing here to make clear that Ferrari isn't alone in this. McLaren, Bugatti, Lamborghini, and to varying degrees Aston Martin have all had documented cases of restricting parts access to vehicles they consider outside the official service chain. What makes this particularly sharp for the rebuilder community is that these manufacturers often still own the intellectual property on the parts themselves. So even if you find the physical component, say, a McLaren P1 brake caliper, from a third-party supplier or a salvage auction, you may legally need OEM software to calibrate it, and that software access can be withheld. Under the existing block exemption rules, that's already a gray area. Under the new directive, as it gets implemented across member states, it becomes much harder to defend. The legislation explicitly says technical protection measures cannot be used to prevent lawful repair. For rebuilders operating in the EU, and for EU residents buying rebuilt cars from UK sources, this creates an interesting dynamic. The legal standard for what a seller must disclose about a vehicle's repair history, and what access to legitimate parts means for a car's value and safety, is about to become significantly more defined in European law. Which brings us to Mark McCann. At first glance, Matt Armstrong and Mark McCann look like opposites. One is a rebuilder who wants more access to parts and technical information from manufacturers. The other is accused, allegedly, of situations where buyers didn't have enough information about what they were getting. But they're actually two sides of the same coin. The root problem in both cases is information asymmetry in the car market. Manufacturers hold data about vehicles that buyers and independent operators can't easily access. That information imbalance creates space for both legitimate frustration, as in Armstrong's case with part supply, and for alleged misconduct, as critics claim happened in McCann's situation. Right-to-repair legislation, at its most ambitious, doesn't just address the workshop. It addresses the entire information ecosystem around vehicle ownership, repair, and sale. If every significant repair event is logged in a standardized, tamper-resistant system, if parts sourcing is tied to verifiable manufacturer records, if software calibration requires documented authentication, then the gray areas in both scenarios get a lot smaller. For rebuilder YouTubers, that cuts both ways. More parts access is a win, but more accountability around rebuild quality and documentation is also a requirement. The days of a loosely documented rebuild being sold at market value without a clear paper trail are likely numbered in European markets. Here's where it gets genuinely complicated, and I want to be honest about the uncertainty here, because a lot of commentary on this gets it wrong. The UK is not subject to the EU right to repair directive. Brexit means UK law develops separately. However, the UK has its own consumer protection frameworks: the Consumer Rights Act 2015, the Road Vehicles, Construction and Use regulations, and the existing MOT and DVLA registration systems all touch on vehicle standards. The UK government has made some noises about right to repair, In 2021, regulations came into force requiring manufacturers of certain appliances to make parts available for a set period. For cars, the framework is less developed, but the conversation is happening. What makes this particularly important for UK car YouTubers and for their audience buying cars in the UK is that the EU is often a regulatory standard setter for the global auto industry. When EU rules require manufacturers to open up diagnostic access and parts supply, manufacturers typically can't maintain a completely separate system for UK markets. The compliance cost of having two different technical approaches is too high. So EU regulation ends up pulling UK practice along with it, even without direct legal force. That means what's happening in Brussels right now has real practical implications for what Matt Armstrong can get from Ferrari and Surrey, and for what disclosure standards might look like in UK car sales within the next few. The manufacturer lobby has not taken the right to repair directive quietly. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association argued in consultation that the proposed rules would compromise vehicle safety, that independent operators lack the training for complex repairs, and that intellectual property concerns around software are legitimate. There's a version of that argument that's defensible. Modern cars are extraordinarily complex. A Tesla, for example, has over-the-air software updates that interact with safety systems in ways that even trained technicians find difficult to navigate. Requiring Tesla to hand over the tools to do that independently raises genuine questions. But consumer advocates and independent repair businesses point out that the same safety argument was made about the right to repair smartphones, computers, and medical equipment. In most of those cases, when manufacturers were required to open up access, the catastrophic safety failures they predicted didn't materialize. What did materialize was more competition, lower repair costs, and a longer useful life for products. The car industry's version of this argument is being tested in real time, and rebuilder YouTubers like Matt Armstrong are, whether they intended to be or not, public case studies in what happens when the argument goes in the manufacturer's favor. July 2026 is the implementation deadline for EU member states. Between now and then, we should expect several things to happen. First, manufacturers operating in EU markets will need to demonstrate genuine compliance with parts availability requirements. For exotic brands like Ferrari, the question of how they define available to whom will be tested. Legal challenges are likely. Second, the vehicle data access question, the digital repair passport concept, will move from regulatory discussion into concrete proposals. The EU has already been working on a data act that touches on vehicle data access, and that conversation intersects directly with right to repair. Third, for the UK, watch the 2025 to 2026 regulatory calendar. Post-Brexit trade. Dynamics and the political pressure around consumer rights mean this is on the agenda, even if it moves slower than in Brussels. For the rebuilder community specifically, the practical impact could be significant within 2 to 3 years. Better parts access, better diagnostic tool availability, clearer legal status for independent repairs, but also, and this is the part that doesn't always get discussed, stricter documentation requirements and clearer liability frameworks for what a rebuilt car needs to disclose before it changes hands. And this affects you directly, whether you're watching this as a car buyer, a car fan, or someone thinking about what the used market looks like in the next few years. If you're buying a used car in the EU or UK, the trajectory of this legislation is toward better protection. More disclosure, more accessible repair history, less ability for sellers to obscure what's been done to a vehicle. The McCann situation is the kind of thing that legislation like this is explicitly designed to make harder to pull off. If you're a car enthusiast who loves the kind of content Matt Armstrong makes, and the rebuild community in general, This legislation is broadly positive for the ecosystem you enjoy. More parts access means more ambitious builds. More documentation requirements mean more clarity about what you're watching. If you're involved in independent car repair or the salvage rebuild business, the next 2 years are genuinely important to follow. The legal framework is shifting, and the businesses that get ahead of the documentation and compliance curve will be significantly better positioned than those who treat it as bureaucratic noise. So where does this go next? In the short term, watch for legal challenges from manufacturers as member states start implementing the directive. Ferrari and others have the resources and the motive to fight specific provisions, and the case law that develops will define how aggressively the rules actually apply to exotics. On the McCann situation, the legal and regulatory processes in the UK are still grinding through. There may be clearer outcomes over the next 12 months, and I'll cover them when there are. And Matt Armstrong is still rebuilding cars. Ferrari's restrictions haven't stopped him. If anything, they've become a recurring storyline that his audience finds compelling. Whether EU regulatory pressure eventually changes Ferrari's approach is a genuinely open question. If this video got you thinking, hit like. It genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe if you want to catch the follow-up, because this story has more chapters. And in the next video, we're looking at another angle on manufacturer control over the exotic car market that I think is going to surprise you. Stay curious. I'll see you there.